Welcome back. Now, for the last 4 months, I have been warning my viewers on this channel that we are going to hit the top at some point during the year. And then a little bit later in the year, around May and June, I started calling the top of the Bitcoin market on this channel around this $110,000 level. Now, even though we went higher, we went to 125,000, and maybe we're going to go higher after that, the market is screaming top, 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 maybe even double or triple or quadruple tops. And I think that what we are about to see is this major shift from Bitcoin to Ethereum, maybe some altcoins as people have been expecting, and then the cycle is going to poof right into a bear market. This is what I think is going on here. And in today's video, I'm going to show you examples that we are already in euphoria, that some of the best traders and wealthy investors are falling for the bull traps, are falling for the fact that they can't even see where we are in the cycle. And this is an indicator of where we are in the cycle. And that means we're already at the top, right? Everybody's expecting something else to indicate the top. But if you look at the sentiment around, and if you look at the examples, and some of those we're going to be going over in today's video, it should be very clear where we are in this cycle. And so we're going to be discussing these Bitcoin treasury companies, the Ethereum treasury companies, and MicroStrategy specifically. Because in my view, I'm going to give you guys dates. I'm going to give you a specific date in this video to look out for. And I'm going to show you data to back this date up, that this is potentially the end of the MicroStrategy trade, at least for a little bit. Because if MicroStrategy starts to fall, the rest of the market's going to fall. And this potentially is going to bring us into alt season. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. This is probably one of the most important videos that I'm posting in 2025. So make sure you guys are subscribed. Give this video a free thumbs up because crypto is not free, but thumbs up are always free, as you guys know. And if you want to help support the channel, click the join or subscribe plus button down below to learn more about becoming a channel member right here on the Cryptoviser podcast. So we're going to be starting right over here. Many of you guys know legendary trader Peter Brandt. He wrote on X at the end of August into September. Most of you crypto nerds know about the huge sell order that came into the Bitcoin market over the weekend, meaning the end of August into September. Some of you discount this sell order as unimportant. He said, I'm not so quick to judge that. It represents supply, and tops in markets are created by supply or distribution. Bitcoin needs to get back above 117,000 to discount the past 7 weeks as a possible double top in the market. Now, I mean, we've been talking about the double top in the market for quite a while. We've been talking about these Bitcoin companies. Everyone keeps saying, well, MicroStrategy keeps buying. Yeah, they are, but they're also buying from the whales. They're buying from the Bitcoin mining companies. This is supply hitting the market. And we keep seeing 80,000 Bitcoin waking up from, over a decade ago and then being sold on the open market. And, the bulls are like, oh no, there's no problems here. We're going higher. We're going higher. But these are top indicators, right? And by the way, guys, I have not just been talking about the top now. I've been talking about the top since the beginning of this year, into the middle of the year when we called the top at around $110,000. Now, granted, we did go higher than that, but I said in my videos where I call the top that we may go higher. But effectively, these are just going to be volatility bounces and not based on real metrics and real sentiment in the market, because there's really only one buyer of actual Bitcoin in the market, and that's MicroStrategy. Because even Jack Mallers, 21, they're not buying Bitcoin. They're just transferring it from Tether into the company that they're creating, 21. And so Nakamoto, which is another company we're going to get to in just a minute, they're selling shares on the open market to then go buy Bitcoin. So effectively, they're the only buyers in the market. There's no other big buyers. No other major companies are buying Bitcoin. Remember GameStop? Yeah, they bought 500 million, and that was it. They were the one company outside of these Bitcoin treasury companies that bought Bitcoin this cycle, and everybody's super bullish on it. And so Peter Brandt is calling a double top here. Now, this other user called Mark Ritchie on X, 49,000 followers, he said, I'll chime in here as I've been trading Bitcoin for years based on primarily the technicals, chart to get in, then finance a bigger hold with a winning position. but there's a lot of chatter just assuming based on prior cycles where Bitcoin has gone, that Bitcoin has to go to $150,000 or $250,000 seems to be the consensus for this year. I would agree, guys. Everything that we've been covering is, oh, but last cycle we went up this much, so this cycle we have to go up this much. I even showed you guys months ago a video from Saifedean Ammous, who's a well-known Bitcoin advocate. He was interviewing with a Bitcoin podcaster, and he goes, we're basically towards where we top out in the cycle. And the host was like, wait, you don't think we're going to go to 200? In previous cycles, we went up this much, so we should be out here. And he's like, yeah, but that's based on what you think. That's not based on how the cycles have acted in previous, in previous years. And I've been talking about this forever. This is why when people think that that we haven't even hit euphoria yet. I mean, I'm seeing this all over. People are Cryptoviser, we haven't even hit euphoria. I don't feel euphoric. It's like, it's not about you guys. It's about the market. And I'm going to show you examples that this phase of the market is the biggest bull trap that you will ever see. And every cycle going forward, it's going to be bigger bull trap, bigger bull trap, bigger bull trap. In the last cycle, the warning signals were there. The Federal Reserve started raising rates, stopped the money printing, and we saw a lot of issues in the crypto space. Some people still didn't get out. 15,500, the cycle low. They were like, should I sell now? And I'm like, guys, on this channel, we're buying because we prepared for this. So this is the biggest bull trap. And really smart long-term investors are falling for the bull trap. And it's very fascinating to watch because I think I see the market very clear that we're topping out, whether it's now or in a week or in a month, we're topped. And so the risk is not holding for another month to maybe go up double, because that's a very high risk when I know we're at the top. And the biggest bulls in the market do not see it. They are convinced that we're never going to have a bear market again. And I'm not even talking about MicroStrategy. I'm talking about investors. So we're going to get to that in just a minute. Back to this tweet. He said, in my view, this stuff is meaningless and more accurately dangerous if people are ignoring risk, which everybody is. He said, to my eye, I'm still holding a longer term piece here. This breakout of Bitcoin is retesting. And if it fails, this is a pretty big character change. Doesn't mean that Bitcoin is dead or any of that stuff. But right now, it's truly in strong hands. This is where they should show up and accumulate. This is an important point Peter Brandt is making, is that tops are created by supply, not demand, not opinions or fears or stories or chart patterns. Selling and supply creates tops, period. It's opposite what you think. A lot of people think bull market is buying is gonna create the top. No. Selling creates the top, because people hold on to their coins until they hit a number, whatever that number is. For you, Bitcoin, maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's $500,000, maybe you already sold. Everybody has a number. And once that number's hit, the supply opens up. And that is literally how supply demand works. That's how markets work. The whole market's not saying, well, Raoul Pal said that we're going to have an extended cycle, so we all need to hold. Other market participants are going to front run that, and market participants are going to front run that, and then other market participants are going to front run that. And so before you know it, there's no extended cycle, which I've said there's going to be no extended cycle. And so we have been seeing immense sell pressure, immense amounts of Bitcoin hitting the open market now. Right? Before, it was just going to MicroStrategy or to any of these Bitcoin treasury companies. Now they're doing it on the open market. It's very interesting. He said, not that anyone cares, but he said, I also think people appealing to old cycles or Bitcoin or ideas that we know this happens every cycle are really fooling themselves for a few reasons. Well, I agree. Guys, anytime you hear somebody, and I don't think there's any other YouTubers that think that are saying that we're hitting the top, or that we're at the top. I can't tell whether they're lying or they really can't see it. And I think that they just really can't see it. They're in the bull trap. They are going to get slaughtered in that bull trap. And we're going to explain this in just a minute. I hope you guys are following. And by the way, I'm going to tell you the exact date that I am watching very close, and it's coming up within a week from this video when I'm posting this video. Some of you, by watching this video, you're going to hear the date and say, oh, Cryptoviser was right. And I hope you post that down below in the comments. And while you're down there, don't forget to give the video a free thumbs up. But anyway, yeah, everybody who keeps saying, oh, but last cycle, but this cycle, last cycle, I'm like, it's not guaranteed. Like, there's no standard operating procedure book for how Bitcoin's going to move. Anyway, the most important being that early cycles in crypto market were massively inefficient and almost no one was there, especially Wall Street. The nature of market changes based upon participants involved. So there's no reason to think that any maturing market has to act like it did when it was far less mature. I agree. And if you look at the Bitcoin halving tracker, every cycle has had diminishing returns. But then people come on the channel while they're looking at the chart and they'll say, Cryptoviser, there's no such thing as diminishing returns in crypto anymore. And it's like, you're looking at the chart where you see diminishing returns and you're saying there's no diminishing returns. What? Anyway, by the way, most of my viewers get it, but there's a lot of tourists who come to the channel and they explain kind of where we are. Anyway, for context, all of crypto has a few $billion market cap when he first started back in 2015. Now it's $4 trillion. If you don't think that changes the nature of the market, then I can't help you. So anyone appealing, especially to early years of Bitcoin and ETH, is delusional at best. And I would agree. I mean, I think the top is hit. And I don't even know if we're going to see a top in Ethereum or anything like that, but we're going to get to that in just a second. Okay. The VP of Investor Relations at Nakamoto, which is another Bitcoin treasury company that just went public, they're thrilled to announce a $5 billion ATM offering. Okay, thank you to the partners TD Securities, Cantor, B. Riley, all these other companies. So basically, they're selling shares in the open market to the tune of $5 billion to go buy Ethereum. I mean, they could have done this last year at lower prices, right? They could have done this the year before that at lower prices. They could have done it year before that. Oh, sorry, they're buying Bitcoin. But no, they're going to do this at all-time record highs at the end of the cycle, at the 18 months after the Bitcoin halving cycle, which is historically when the top of the market is. But we're not in euphoria, guys. We're all the way down here at optimism. That's what a lot of people in the market are saying. They're buying the top of the market, and you don't think that this is, and they're thrilled about it, selling shares in the open market to raise money to go buy at the top of the market. I mean, I still don't understand why none of these companies are just raising the money, selling right now, those shares, and then keeping in cash until the market drops a little bit. But they can't tell you that the market's going to drop. But it's going to, it is. And meanwhile, look at Nakamoto's, they're called Kindly still. That's the company that they merged with or were before. And you can see that the stock price still cannot recover, and it's just going straight down, and it's going to continue to go straight down because they're selling shares in the open market, so they're increasing the shares. Now, when they buy the Ethereum, if the Ethereum price stays the same, then probably the market cap will go higher as well. But what happens if Ethereum drops? What if this is the end of the cycle for Ethereum, right? We hit the all-time high, boom, that's done. And by the way, Ethereum did just hit all-time record high, $4,600, $4,700, $4,800, something like that. A lot of people are hoping that we're going to get to, 10,000, 20,000, and we may. I hope that we do. But it may not happen. It may not. But let's get to why I think it's actually going to happen. Because, guys, I am very bullish on, and by the way, they're buying Bitcoin. I keep saying Ethereum like they're buying Ethereum. No, they're buying Bitcoin. So if in my thesis, the Bitcoin's going down, what do you think is going to happen to the stock? As they're selling shares in the open market to buy Bitcoin at all-time record highs and the price is going down at the same time, everything's going down. But I think that, we're already seeing it in the market, the rotation from Bitcoin into Ethereum in wallets, right? We're seeing people, investors moving Bitcoin, selling it, and buying Ethereum. So in my view, the Bitcoin trade is over, but it's not over until it's over. And that brings us to MicroStrategy, because you guys know MicroStrategy is the risk. And so if MicroStrategy's thesis starts to crack, which it is, their share price can drop and it can bring down Bitcoin significantly because they are the single number one buyer this market in this cycle. So we're going to start right here. Again, we're going to get to the Ethereum stuff in a minute because we have to understand when Bitcoin is going to drop first and then what's going to happen with Ethereum. Because again, we're already starting to see rotations into Ethereum from Bitcoin. But then what is going to happen when the whole market comes down? Like if Bitcoin drops, typically the whole market follows Bitcoin. But is there going to be a detachment? Okay, so now let's get to the date of this drop or the date of the correction or the beginning of the correction. Let me rephrase it. Josh, who is a well-known MicroStrategy investor, he made about $30 million earlier this year on trades in MicroStrategy. And now he's kind of back and forth trading in and out in all of their debt facilities and their preferred stocks and their stock. He said MicroStrategy is practically in the S&P 500 already. By the way, it's not. When I'm recording this video in the beginning of September, I'm going to give you the date in a minute that the S&P 500 makes announcements about whether they're including new companies in the S&P 500. Josh said the company, meaning MicroStrategy, has resumed selling its own shares to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars per week, and yet there are whiners who think that there's a handful of odd lot-sized portfolios who write it on Twitter and are moving the stock lower. First of all, MicroStrategy is not practically in the S&P 500. He's the only person that has said it's confirmed and there's no actual source for the confirmation. But in my view, this is the rug pull. Not what Josh is saying, but that the inclusion in the S&P 500. So I actually went and asked Grok. I said, what date is any announcements of inclusion for any company expected in the S&P 500? Here's the date, guys. You ready? Based on the context and the ongoing discussions about MicroStrategy and the potential inclusion in the S&P 500, announcements for quarterly rebalances are typically made in the S&P and Dow Jones indices on the first Friday of March, June, and September and December. Well. When is the next announcement? September 5, just a few days away from this video being recorded and released. And so here's the deal. If MicroStrategy is added to this S&P 500 index, it's going to be pretty bullish for the stock. But I don't think it's going to be. I think this is the rug pull. And let me explain why. Just a few months ago, we heard MicroStrategy state that they are not going to sell shares on the open market unless the NAV is over 2.5, meaning like it's overvalued by 2.5, the stock. That way they sell shares on the open market and they can bring that NAV down and also buy more Bitcoin. But then they reversed and people were questioning why they reversed. Well, think about it. If they have an inclination that they're not going to be included in the S&P 500 and they know the market is anticipating that, and this is potentially what's keeping the price of MicroStrategy above the 1 MNAV, which is where it should be. Otherwise, you're paying $1.60 for $1 of assets, right? It doesn't make any sense. You're overpaying. Well, if they had an inclination that they're not going to be included in the S&P 500, they know there's a puff of air under the stock for MicroStrategy, meaning the price will fall precipitously. And so what did they do? They didn't just change the guidance. I think a lot of people who like MicroStrategy miss this point. They didn't just change the guidance from we're not going to sell under 2.5 MNAV to we're going to sell no matter what. But they started doing it immediately, right? The bulls will make a positive out of anything. They'll say, oh, it's not that big of a deal because they're not actually going to do it unless they actually need the money. Well, they did it that week. Like $500 million or something like that. It was a big amount. Actually, we can look right here on the purchases, 357 million, and most of that was shares sold on the open market. And so why would they change the guidance and then sell $350 million in shares in 1 week to go buy Bitcoin? And by the way, they're probably doing it the following week and the week after that. Well, if my thesis is valid that they're not going to be included in the S&P 500 regardless of what all these bulls are saying, that's guaranteed, right? On September 5, we're going to find out either way. Now the bull, if it's not included, right, and the S&P 500, they're going to make no mention of MicroStrategy at all, right? It's not going to be like, well, we looked at MicroStrategy and we decided no. No, if they don't include it, there's going to be no mention of MicroStrategy at all. If that happens, there is, I mean, guys, puff of air under the stock, and this is happening on a Friday. So think about it. They are maximizing the fact that the MNAV is still high. And so them selling shares on the open market is technically not diluting the shareholder because the stock is just overvalued, right? Now the shareholder is going to think that they're being diluted, but technically they're not. They're just arb trading this to buy more Bitcoin because it's overvalued. But effectively, that's why I think they've been selling so rapidly and why they changed the guidance so quickly is so that they can capture this liquidity that is still there to keep buying Bitcoin. Because once they stop buying Bitcoin, guys, Bitcoin is dropping just because they're the largest buyer in the market. And so let's go back to the date, right? September 5. So this is a Friday. Now, in a previous video, I showed you this chart of MicroStrategy stock. This is the 1-year chart. Now, my thesis in the last cycle was from the top of the market to the bottom of the market is 1 year, okay? And that was correct because from the top of 2021 to the bottom in 2022, it was exactly 1 year. We called FTX to the day. No other YouTuber did that. And so I'm just looking at the 1-year chart and saying, look at this inverted. Look at this upside down. Because again, if this was the top last year, and that's the top for the cycle, let's say, that means that this is going to be the bottom for this cycle, which lines up with 2022. The end of November was effectively the bottom for Bitcoin. And so if that's true, that means that this is going to be the top for this year. And what date does that top hit? September 6th. And what is September 6th? The day after, we're going to hear whether they're being included in the S&P 500 or not, which I believe the answer is no. And so again, there's no confirmation. They changed their guidance and sold $350 million the same week to buy more Bitcoin. And September 6th is the day after we're going to find out whether they're included. So if they're not included, the idea that MicroStrategy price is going to go up and that Bitcoin is going to go up is nonsense. In my view, it's going to go down precipitously. And that's what this would show. Instead of going up, this would be going down on September 6th. And so think about this. September 5 is a Friday. Let's say there's no announcement, or there's an announcement that there is no inclusion for MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy starts falling on September 5th. The market closes. Bitcoin starts dropping massively, under 100,000 through the weekend. Because remember, MicroStrategy cannot trade on the weekends. MicroStrategy can only trade on weekdays. Bitcoin is 24/7. So you're going to have Friday where the market is going to be shocked. At least, I mean, the bulls, I should say. The bulls in the market and the shareholders will be shocked. Wait, Michael Saylor didn't get the inclusion in the S&P 500 and the price will start dropping. Then the market will close and Bitcoin will drop. Bulls will buy it, keep buying it, but it will keep dropping because they're the only ones left. They're the only ones buying it. Wall Street's going to back the hell off. Investors are going to take their profits and move over to Ethereum. And this is all going to be happening over the weekend. So we have a potential that we're going to close that Friday and open that Monday much, 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 much lower. And if my thesis is correct that this effectively September 5 would be the top for MicroStrategy this year, we have a long way down, a long way down. I mean, $100 to $500 was a 500% increase. So if you invert that, that's an 80% decrease in the price from where we are. So an 80%, and by the way, what I'm explaining to you, there's so many dynamics involved here, and this is where the bulls can't see it. Even Josh, and I'm going to show you that even Josh doesn't see it. He's missing it. He's getting caught in the bull trap. This is the bull trap. This is classic bull trap in my view. And the bull trap happens after the euphoria mode because people don't think that we're in euphoria. They're like, Cryptoviser, there's no euphoria. We're not in euphoria. The market drops, everyone says, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip, which every YouTuber, every influencer on social media is saying, buy the dip, this is the dip to buy. Once we hit 10x, and I'm like, why do they keep thinking that it's guaranteed? Again, when everybody in the market thinks something's guaranteed, you can almost bet your damn ass it's going to be the opposite. But they don't see it. They do not see it. And so going from 340, 300, we'll just say $350, and we minus 80%, that's $70 MicroStrategy. And by the way, that's just based on this kind of chart. And we're not taking into account how far Bitcoin can fall. It can fall pretty low. What's going to happen to the MNAV? Because if Bitcoin falls, as MicroStrategy is falling, and then the MNAV compresses and Bitcoin keeps falling, MicroStrategy will fall harder than Bitcoin. Potentially double or 50% more. Definitely. It's a possibility. And so, even Josh is kind of calling, warning in the market. He said, just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, along comes the candle guidance. And Gladiator, who's, equities trader, said God candles are loading for MicroStrategy. Like, how are God candles loading for MicroStrategy? Well, maybe because everyone thinks the inclusion in the S&P 500 is guaranteed. It's guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. And by the way, if you're bearish on MicroStrategy, you have to be bearish on Bitcoin. I'm not saying forever, but for a time period. But he said, I still have faith. Not one to keep buying all the way down, but I drew a faint line in the sand. I think we saw the lows today. Could be wrong, but I put my money where my mouth is. I wish you all luck in the world. He posted this on August 26th, and he bought IBIT and BitX. But basically, these track Bitcoin. Okay, look at the Bitcoin chart for the last 2 years, up to August 26th. This is 1 year. We'll pull this back another full year. And so this is August 26th right here on the screen, okay? $112,000. He said this is the bottom, all the way up here. All the way up here. This is the bottom of the market. No, this is the bottom of the market. This is the bottom of the market. This is the top of the market. And so he's getting caught in the bull trap. He is getting caught in the bull trap. He should have walked away from MicroStrategy and Bitcoin after he sold until we actually took a dip. Because the dip is going to be prolonged. It's going to be at least 3 to 6 months, if not longer. But right now we're in this phase right here. And this is going to catch a lot of people because they're going to keep buying. They're going to say, oh no, the bull run's not over. The bull run's not over. Last cycle, this YouTuber, that one, this one. Michael Saylor said no bear market ever again. All these excuses instead of looking at the data. And the data is showing us they're taking the liquidity. MicroStrategy, I don't think is going to be included. Now, I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, a lot of you are going to come on this channel, this video, and say, you were wrong, Cryptoviser, what are you talking about? But there is almost no confirmation. Actually, there is no confirmation and no inclination that MicroStrategy is going to be included. If they were going to be included in the S&P 500, why would they sell at $345, $350 million worth of Bitcoin? Why wouldn't they wait until the inclusion? Because if they were included, I would imagine the price of the stock is going to go up very, very high. But they started selling before. But the bulls say, oh no, they're selling because, they want to start, taking the liquidity. It's like, no. This is the end of the liquidity. That's why they're taking it. This is why the whales are taking it. That's why the early investors are taking it. But guys, there's still areas to make money in the market. Hive, Digital Technologies, this is one of the Bitcoin mining companies. They just crossed 16 exahashes and they're marching towards 25 exahashes by the end of this year, right? So they're expanding. We also are seeing Riot Platforms. Look who just invested 1.2% of all the stock in Riot Platforms. Goldman Sachs Group. They just bought 1.2% of the entire company, Riot Platforms. This, as Riot Platforms, is divesting from Bitfarms after they tried to acquire Bitfarms, and Bitfarms, that was a failure. We're also seeing Marathon Digital very rapidly moving into AI and HPC. Remember what I told my viewers all year? The Bitcoin mining companies that do not pivot to AI and HPC are going to fail in the bear market. And there are a few, very few, that didn't pivot to AI. And you can see Marathon Digital is now doing this very late in the cycle. And in my view, this is another example of them de-risking from Bitcoin as we, number one, Bitcoin mining difficulty is rising. But number two, if we enter a bear market, the return on their business operations goes down. And we start to see, in previous cycles, a lot of companies didn't make it. And remember, Marathon Digital raised money earlier in the year to buy 50,000 Bitcoin or something like that, instead of investing in AI and HPC, because that Bitcoin, if we go in a bear market, it's going to be worth less than what they purchased it for. And by the way, insiders are also selling Marathon. You can see Fred Thiel, who's I think on the board, he sold 27,000 shares. Khan, who I'm the chief financial officer, he sold 34,000 shares as well. Now this could just be normal sales for their pay and stuff like that, because it was less than $1 million, and I think that the market could probably handle it. But it is interesting when insiders are selling and the bulls are so bullish they can't even see where we are. Other indicators: Kanye West meme coin down 81% from the peak, and he says that his Instagram was hacked for the scam. Whether it is or isn't, it doesn't matter. This is an indicator of where we are in the cycle. Meme coins, Haktua coins, celebrity coins that do absolutely nothing. We're also now seeing Solana is going to be releasing a handheld gaming device called Play Solana. PSG1 comes with gaming-ready specs, a built-in crypto wallet, and fingerprint security, marking Solana's latest push into consumer hardware and Web3 gaming. Now, while some people are celebrating this and saying, wow, this is amazing, guys, they did the same thing last cycle. Actually, around this time in the cycle, right, when the market was probably going to be dropping and bottoming out, right? What happened in the beginning of November 2025? FTX collapse. So that indicated basically the market starting to drop when they released that phone. And now we're in the same part of the cycle. Oh, we're about to ship this device. I mean, I feel like the billionaires, I feel like they strategized that. And they were like, how can we let the other billionaires know that we're at the top of the market? Well, let's do exactly what we did last cycle. Pre-production Solana phone to ship to developers in December. December of 2022 was like the macro bottom for most cryptos. What are they doing now? Solana is going to ship these handheld gaming devices in October. And so that would tell me October, we're going to be at much lower prices, right? Now, again, this is just obviously not an actual indicator or technical. But again, when you put this into context with everything else we're talking about, it kind of makes sense. It definitely does. And Jack Mallers is, he's part of a Bitcoin treasury company called 21. And he said, if the biggest stablecoin creators don't see Ethereum treasury as a good idea, why should anyone else? Continuing to say that Bitcoin is the only choice. And again, what's interesting here is, again, the Bitcoin maxis have to convince everybody why the Bitcoin trade is still on, even though interest in Bitcoin trade is waning. Whales are taking their profits. Smart money is exiting. But where are they exiting to? That's a good question, because I don't know. I think generally for crypto, we are at the top. again, I don't think that we're going to have alt season because everybody wants alt season. Everyone's like, well, Cryptoviser, we didn't have alt season. This crypto didn't go up. This crypto didn't go up. And last cycle, we would be up 300. It's the same bullshit that they're saying about Bitcoin. And that's why I don't know that we're going to get alt season, because we did have alt season in 2024, but nobody took profits. I mean, I took profits. Many of you took profits, but most of the market didn't take profits. And like I said, most of the money is to be made outside of actual crypto. All the derivatives were where the money was made, right? I made more money not in crypto, specific, like one specific trade in crypto. It was more in the stocks, because the stocks, that is where the premium was this cycle. While everybody was like, well, let me get my PP coin and let me get my hyper liquid coin. Well, everybody else was focused on MicroStrategy, the Bitcoin mining companies, the AI plays. Now, obviously the Ethereum strategy companies as well. So I don't know whether all of crypto has hit the top. I know Bitcoin has hit top with almost 100% certainty at this point. And listen, we could have volatility, but I don't think that we're going to be higher than where we are now in 6 months. I think we're going to be lower. That's kind of like my base thesis. And when it comes to Ethereum and the other altcoins, I really don't know. I really don't know, because Ethereum just hit all-time high, and people are just discounting it. Like, oh no, we haven't even hit 6,000 yet. It's like, yeah, but we hit all-time record high. They're like, we did? Yeah, we did. And so same thing happened in last cycle. Like, look at Litecoin. Litecoin didn't even hit its previous all-time record high. And a lot of coins didn't in the last cycle. And so we may not hit it this cycle. Would it suck? Absolutely. But that just means that not all of our investments worked out. I mean, you still may be in profit for some of those. I mean, there's certain cryptos that have more of a negative than Dogecoin. And so people are like, that doesn't make sense. We have to go higher. Well, no, we don't. No, we don't. And so this is something to keep in mind. Another part of the video I wanted to kind of show you is the Bitwise Chief Investment Officer, Matt Hoogan, said, I think JP Morgan Chase is confused. Can someone tell them that 0% interest rule is only for stablecoins, not bank accounts? And he showed that Chase basically gives 0 in interest. And again, so the conversation around DeFi, the conversation around stablecoins, this new world of finance, I think it's still going. And I think it's actually accelerating. Because yes, we've talked about it, but it's really been about Bitcoin. Now we're starting to hear and see integrations with TradFi, with stablecoins. Earlier in the year, JP Morgan tested on Ondo Finance. We're seeing an expansion of Chainlink and USDC and Tether and bank interest and bank usage and bank access to these assets. So I don't think that we have seen the end of alts yet. That doesn't mean that we're just immediately going to go up. But I do think that if my thesis about MicroStrategy plays out, and MicroStrategy does not get an inclusion, and the price goes from this down to that, right? Opposite, invert this, look at the screen upside down. I think that Bitcoin, people are just going to start dumping Bitcoin, right? And they're going to say Ethereum is now the strategy. And people are just going to move to Ethereum because it's going to be the next best thing. Then after that, maybe we'll see a rotation into alts. But this can all happen very rapidly, like within the next 30 to 60 days. And I think definitely it's going to occur before November. But if Bitcoin keeps falling precipitously, this is going to have impacts on the rest of the market. And the volatility to the downside may be worth buying, not from Bitcoin perspective, but from these DeFi plays or real world asset plays. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think my thesis is valid? Do you think the timing on my thesis is valid? And what do you think about the MicroStrategy bulls? Just feeling very confident that MicroStrategy is included in the S&P 500. And if it's not, oh boy, look out below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and crypto on.